So now we're on the last recording for viruses for chapter 19. We talked about whether or not viruses are alive. We talked some about virus structure. Then we talked about virus replication, where we spent a lot of time on bacteriophages, and especially the lytic and lysogenic cycle. This is one of the most important parts of this entire chapter. Then we also spent a little bit of time talking about replication in animal viruses, because remember, the bacteriophages are specifically viruses that infect bacteria. So now we're going to finish up with talking about viruses as pathogens. So viruses that are not those bacteriophages, but viruses that infect animals or other organisms, they can actually infect all types of different species. So we usually think of viruses affecting animals, but they can infect plants and all different kinds of animals. So wild and domesticated animals, and also obviously humans. So down here we have, this was actually emphasized pretty strongly in your book, the tobacco mosaic virus, which is a virus that infects plants. This is a pangolin, which actually it's a mammal, a really odd-looking mammal found in Africa, and it carries a very similar strain of coronavirus as COVID-19. So we actually are not positive if the pangolin didn't play some role in transmission of that virus to humans. The other option, and the more likely option, is that it was actually transmitted from bats. But bats and pangolins carry a very similar strain of the coronavirus that is very similar to COVID-19. So we're pretty sure that one of those two groups of animals was involved. And here, this is just showing a goofy image of a dog wearing a mask. But your pets actually do get viruses as well. You may have had a dog that you've heard coughing or having a runny nose or just didn't feel well for a few days. There's actually some pretty serious viruses that your pets can get. One example is the parvovirus that dogs can get. It's very contagious. They can get it from other dogs, and it can make them very sick. So viruses as pathogens, they're a real problem for plants and animals. The way viruses cause their problems is that they can cause the cells that they infect to produce toxins, and sometimes toxins lead to the symptoms that make you feel sick. Sometimes the viruses are damaging the cells a lot, and with cell death comes the symptoms that might make you feel really wiped out. Also, when your immune system is attacking viruses, that can cause fever and also cause exhaustion and fatigue. So sometimes viruses themselves also produce the toxins that lead to symptoms. So there's a lot of different ways that viruses can cause problems. They also vary a lot in their virulence and in their transmission. So virulence is how deadly they are. How much damage do they do? Can they kill you? Ones that are very virulent are viruses that can kill you. Those that are less virulent are less likely to kill you, or don't kill very many individuals at all. And also some viruses are easily transmitted and others are less easily transmitted. And so the real problematic viruses are the ones who are very virulent, so they have a high probability of killing people, and they are easily transmitted from one individual to the next. So viruses really vary a lot in all of these different things. So what do we do to prevent getting viruses, or what do we do when we get a virus? So honestly, there's not a whole lot of options. The best solution to protect yourself from a virus is to get a vaccine if it's available. And what a vaccine is it's basically, it's something that gets injected into your body, and it has an inactive or just a piece of a virus. So it's not an active virus. It's not something that can make you sick, but it's a piece of a virus or an inactivated virus that can be injected into your body that allows your immune system to build up a defense against it without it making you sick. So typically when you catch a virus from somebody, and it's something you haven't had before, your immune system will attack it, and it will typically destroy it and eliminate it from your body, but it takes a long time for your immune system to identify the virus as something that is foreign, to launch an attack against it, and to beat it. So if you get a vaccine, and by the way, while your immune system is doing that to the virus is doing a lot of damage to your body and can make you really, really sick or even kill you before the immune system can get it under control. If you get a vaccine ahead of time, the vaccine does not make you sick, because remember that the little pieces of virus that are in the vaccine are not going to make you sick. They are inactive. So they're inactive, but the immune system still is able to attack it as something that is foreign, and so it builds a defense against something that actually isn't hurting you right now. So then if you do get infected with that virus later, your immune system already has all of the tools it needs to attack it right away so that it can't do damage. So that's why vaccines are so important. Viral infections cannot be treated with antibiotics. Sometimes people take antibiotics when they have a viral infection, like if they have a cold or the flu, but antibiotics cannot help. And that's because antibiotics treat bacterial infections, not viral infections. So it's actually pretty problematic if you try to treat a viral infection with an antibiotic, because you can actually that can actually lead to the cells in your body and any bacteria in your body that happen to be there can build up a resistance to a lot of antibiotics if you give them or if you take them unnecessarily. So don't treat a viral infection with antibiotics. Cannot help at all, and sometimes it can hurt. So one thing that you can do if you get a viral infection is that there could be some antiviral drugs out there that can help to treat the viral infection. They can't cure a viral infection, but what they can do is sort of slow down the replication of the virus inside your body potentially, or also it could interfere with the viral assembly inside of a cell. But antiviral drugs are really difficult to create because they have to specifically target a virus and they can't target your cells. So the virus is inside your cells and it's attacking your cells, and the antiviral drug has to specifically identify the virus and have its negative effect on the virus while leaving your cells intact. So antiviral drugs are usually, they can help some, but it's really hard to get one that's really effective without harming the other cells of your body. So let's talk for a second about some emerging viruses. An emerging virus is a virus that sort of suddenly appears and starts to spread, and it sort of wasn't on anybody's radar. And we've had a lot of emerging viruses appear in the last, well, in my lifetime. So one emerging virus that I know you've all heard of, it doesn't seem to be as big of a deal these days, but is HIV. So in the 1980s, I was in grade school or high school, and HIV was a really big deal. That was a virus that sort of came out of nowhere and started spreading like crazy, and for a while we didn't know how it was spreading, and so that's a really good example of an emerging virus, but now we know a lot about it and actually can treat it pretty easily as well. The Ebola virus is a virus that was still kind of a problem every once in a while, but there was a big outbreak in 2014. From 2014 to 2016, it's a really dangerous virus. It causes hemorrhagic fever, bleeding out of lots of orifices. People get sick really, really quickly, and really has a very high mortality rate. So a lot of people die from that one. It is spread through body fluids, and so when someone's taking care of someone who's sick, there's a really high chance that that person will get it too, and so that's how that one spreads. Another example is, oh, and by the way, if you look at this Ebola virus, it's these long strands here. It looks really different from a lot of the other viruses in terms of the structure that we've looked at. Another emerging virus that you may or may not have heard of is the chikungunya virus, which is right here. This one was a real problem around 2005. It causes fever and aches. It was pretty common in the Pacific Islands and in Central America. But that one seems to be under control for the most part. This chikungunya virus and the Zika virus right here are both transmitted through mosquitoes. And so one way of controlling these viruses is to do what you can to reduce the mosquito population. And I think that's how they got the chikungunya and the Zika virus under control in the places where they were a problem. You may remember the Zika virus also from like 2015, 2016. This one was a real problem because it caused birth defects in babies when the woman was pregnant with the baby and got the virus. So in 2009, there was a general outbreak of a flu-like sickness in the United States and Mexico, and it was caused by a type of influenza virus named H1N1. So you've probably heard of that one. That was a big deal, but certainly not as big of a deal as COVID-19, which is currently a global epidemic. And a global epidemic is also called a pandemic. So anytime a disease is found in multiple countries and is spreading sort of uncontrollably, then they call that a pandemic. So it just means sort of global epidemic. And an epidemic is just a general outbreak of any kind of disease. So the disease that we have going on right now is called COVID-19. That's the name of the disease. And the name of the virus that causes the disease is SARS-CoV-2. So the CO part of both of these refers to the fact that this is a coronavirus, which is a category that we talked about in one of the earlier videos. So the V stands for virus, and the 19 refers to the fact that the first case was found in 2019. And the virus is called SARS-CoV-2 because it is very similar to the SARS virus that was a problem a few years ago. So SARS-CoV-2 is currently spreading internationally, as you all know, resulting in massive loss of life, and it's crippling the world's economy, and it is requiring us to prepare to go online at any moment this semester. So what causes the onset of new viral diseases? There are three processes that contribute to the emergence of new viral diseases. First, RNA viruses often have a high rate of mutation. So that means that if an organism, like a non-human animal, has a virus that is an RNA virus, then it can have multiple strains. So it can mutate a lot. And when viruses have high rates of mutation, one of those random mutations might allow it to be able to infect humans, be transmitted to other species. In this case, humans, when we're talking about viruses that are a problem for us. When that happens, normally that doesn't happen very often, a transmission from a non-human animal to a human, but we have put ourselves in a situation we are in contact with a lot more wild animals. Here's an example of a wet market down here where basically there's, in a lot of countries, people will be cutting down a forest for agricultural reasons or whatever, and any animal they come across they'll kill or capture and bring to a wet market for people to buy and eat. So there's all these people eating wild animals, and when you've got viruses, these animals have viruses just like humans do, and if any of those viruses happen to be transmissible to humans, that's how one of these viruses can get into a human population. And because humans travel so much internationally, if it infects one small area, normally, if there wasn't so much travel, it could be contained pretty easily. But with all the international travel that happens with humans, that makes a pandemic inevitable if a virus is easily transmitted from one person to the next. About 3/4 of new human diseases originate by this spillover of spreading from wild animals to humans, and usually through the eating of bushmeat, which is what I was just describing down here. So that's the end of the virus lecture, and let's hope we get through the rest of the semester without having to go fully online.